are again. Welcome back to Stormwater Creek. Seemed like it's been a while since we've done this. I think we said that before on most of our podcasts.
2 weeks?
It's been a little while. But I'm actually pretty excited about this one since it's my baby. This is we got Jay Stine of the Quail Coalition here. Jay, you want to introduce yourself, sir?
Yeah, I'm Jay Stine, Executive Director of Quail Coalition. We've been in business since 2009 and have chapters all over Texas. The local one here is Park City's Quail chapter, which gets most of the headlines, but we've got lots of chapters doing great work and raising money for quail conservation and getting kids involved in hunting in the outdoors. And we've got a lot of accomplishments over the last 10 years, so we'll be ready to talk about all that.
Awesome.
I'm quite excited too because quail is one of those boxes I've not ever checked. You know,
likewise.
I've done some bird hunting before, and
I've seen a quail.
I got to sit in my dad's backyard in Arizona, and there were quail everywhere. And that was kind of cool. But other than that,
it's cool.
Not.
This is Jordan's bag of tricks.
Yeah,
he's got the dog and things.
Well, now I jumped both feet last year into quail hunting, and it's already been an uphill battle for me, but fun. I figured out I jumped into it probably in what feels like a bad time, but maybe we can talk more about that here in a little bit. But
yeah,
I remember growing up in San Antonio, and I think Dr. Dell talks about it a lot. Like quail, especially the Bob White, most people know what a Bob White sounds like because it literally calls his name out. And I remember hearing them all over the place.
Bob White.
Wow.
That is definitely
You're never going to be a professional quail caller doing that.
Is there a quail call?
There is,
yeah.
There is a quail call. Okay. I'll add that to my obsession of calls to
God.
add.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's very unique. I was out of my ranch this week early on Monday and Tuesday and heard lots of calls. So it's always it's music to my ears being in this business. And there's a lot of places in this state you can go, you'll never hear a quail. Or at least not right now, but hopefully we can change that. But,
I think Abe meant like a duck call, quail call, like Bob White, like
Bob White.
A little whistle or something.
Like I know there's
is that a thing with you people?
I know there's a dove call.
I mean,
which is dumb.
Yeah,
in my opinion, I should say.
Whistling.
There is a dove call.
No, I know.
The 7-1 does a dove call.
Cool.
Yeah. But I don't know. I'm sure someone makes a dove call or a quail call.
I mean,
I think there may be. I've never seen one. I know there's a lot of electronic, the apps these days. You can I'll put in a Bluetooth speaker and call them in, like you would a turkey.
Yes.
They do their rally call, right? And that's what most people use for the call.
Yeah, it's the mating call. I'm not very good at whistling these days, but it's interesting that they've made a quail feeder, and we'll talk about this later, but the eyeworm is a parasite that infects quail, and there's a guy in Lubbock that's made a quail feeder that has an electronic call that calls the birds in to feed, so they'll take the feed in, and it's actually the covey call, which is a little different, but like you said, Dr. Dell has done all these calls on YouTube, and he's one of few. Believe it or not, they have a world championship for quail caller. They used to, and he's won it a couple of times.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. I enjoy listening to him. It's one of those podcasts because he has Dr. Dell on quail, and it's one of those ones where you kind of got to be in the mood to listen to it because he's it's a lot of information, but man, is it good information? Like but let's go ahead and. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the Quail Coalition and y'all's mission? Let's
and
break
yourself.
into that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about your story too.
Sure. Well, I'll get started on the Quail Coalition. We started actually as Quail Unlimited, which used to be around in 2006. The Dallas chapter started at Park City's Quail Unlimited, and there were several other Quail Unlimited chapters across the state and across the country. And the Dallas chapter started raising some money, and kind of got frustrated with raising the money and then sending half of it to South Carolina to be kind of funneled through the corporate structure. So first year they raised a couple hundred, or not even 100,000, 85,000, I think. And the next year it grew some momentum, and we approached Quail Unlimited and said, look, we're going to raise a lot of money. We're not comfortable sending 40-50% of our money, so we'd like to just, cap it at 80,000. Well, then the next year they raised $600,000.
Wow.
And Quail Unlimited kind of balked at the deal, so that kind of rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and we started our own Park Cities Quail, which is its own 501c3. Mm-hmm. And then, a lot of the Texas chapters like that idea to be able to raise the money and keep it in their own backyard. So that's how Quail Coalition was formed in 2009. And this chapter in Kingsville, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, Wichita Falls, Midland, so all over the state, bigger cities. And collectively, we raise over $2 million a year. I think last year we raised $3 million. Park Cities Quail chapter alone here in Dallas raised $2 million, or just under $2 million. So it's we think that helps us raise money. People knowing that the money's going to stay here in Texas, or at least causes that benefit Texas quail hunting. So now we're up to 11 chapters across the state, and we're actually looking to expand. We've got some interest in Alabama and Florida, South Carolina, Tennessee, so Oklahoma. So it makes sense. It's a great model. I'm not here to bash other organizations, but we have no corporate headquarters, no real overhead. I'm the only employee that covers the whole state. So, we don't have a lot of trucks and biologists. And I get a lot of questions about how do we do this? How do we, work on our property? We don't really do that. We just raise the money and grant it to the research organizations across the state, and even in Florida. Tall Timbers is in Florida, and we've given them quite a few grants. So we prefer to let the experts work on research and habitat improvement, and then we direct inquiries to them to help them. And I like to think that we kind of put quail conservation in the forefront in Texas. Wildlife funding, which is good, but parks and wildlife a lot of times can be focused on deer. And
we understand
we're gonna solve this problem with private donations, and we're good at raising that money and getting it to the people that are doing the good work. But about myself, I just I grew up quail hunting with my grandpa when I was a little kid, and bird dogs, had 7 or 8 bird dogs. That was in Montague County, close to Clay County. I grew up in Clay County, but he lived in Montague County.
Gotcha.
It used to be quail. There's not many quail in Montague County anymore, but there's still some in Clay County. But he was an independent contractor, and would pretty much go quail hunting every day and shoot a limited quail by lunch. And I'd tag along with him occasionally. But then as I went through college and early adulthood, I kind of lost touch just because too many things going on. But
sure,
about 15 years ago, I kind of got re-engaged, and still have a family place that we've had in our family since 1873. So I kind of would try to get up there and quail hunt, and we've always had quail, and that's kind of an area of the world where quail are disappearing. So it's great habitat. We've got cattle, but we manage the habitat for quail, and even through the droughts in 2011 and 13, we still held on to a few quail, and then 2016 and 17 we went through a really good quail boom, and saw as many quail there as we've seen since the 1980s. So that gives you hope. In the quail world around 2013, a lot of people were giving up. They were selling their dog trailers, getting rid of their bird dogs, and just dove hunting and fly fishing. And we almost thought it was over, but we kept raising money. And I'm not going to say that our money solved it, but things lined up in 2016 and 17. So that kind of gave everybody hope that, you know, it looked like there weren't any quail anywhere. And then all of a sudden they just grew out of the ground basically. So we're back in a little, like you said, it's just not we're in a little rut here for the last 2 or 3 years, and things are looking up this year, but we got a long way to go. We're going to, with the weather the way it's been this year, probably going to have some more hatches. And but you know, there were so few birds that came into the season that it's hard to get much production. But hopefully we can, you know, grow the bird population this year, and then next year, if weather lines up, hopefully have another boom.
So what you're talking about is the wet we've had, right? The wet helps the quail.
Yep.
Because I think one of the biggest things that I've heard is having ranchers overfill their stock tanks and let a little bit drip out on the ground so the quail actually have some wet to drink and little green. Is that true?
Yeah, it is. And it's not just wet, but it's well timed. You know, you can get a lot of rain in the spring, but then it just goes dry and doesn't rain in July and August. And but this year, you know, even through July, it's still raining out in West Texas. It rained in Wichita Falls last week. So, you know, when you go 6-8 weeks without rain, that really hurts, especially when it's 102 degrees. So we've been lucky this year. So far, it hadn't been really above 100 yet. I think it's coming, but we've had, you know, quail breeding is April, May, June, and hopefully you can get July and August. You can get another second hatch or even a third hatch, especially in, you know, South Texas too. When it rains, they've got quail. A little more complex up here in Northwest Texas, just because it's lower rainfall and the habitat's a lot sparser. But yeah, as far as the water, you know, quail don't necessarily need the water. They can metabolize water out of the things they eat. So seeds or vegetation, they don't really need surface water, but it does help because it creates brooding habitat and a little bit cooler climate. If there's a little water puddle, it's going to be cooler than it is right out there in the sun. So, you know, Boone Pickens is one of our guys that, you know, kind of made a name for himself with his ranch up in the Panhandle. And he was famous for having water every, you know, a couple of 100 yards. He ran miles and miles of pipeline and would have little water puddles, for lack of a better word. So the quail, but that also had vegetation around it, and the quail could come in there and cool off.
Yeah,
they don't necessarily need it for their health, but it does help their habitat. And
sure, the side effects of water.
Sure.
Interesting. So you were talking about these, you know, these population ups and downs,
and busts.
Yep.
Is that solely or primarily based on rainfall and when the rainfall happens, or is there other factors that people don't understand?
It is, and there's the thing about quail is there's never a right answer. There's so many things that impact the quail. On the bottom of the food chain, everything eats a quail, and they nest on the ground. So the rain helps develop the habitat, and you know, quail need good habitat to produce and survive. So, you know, the rain produces the forbs and the plants they eat for protein, and but it also, you can have, in 2016-17, the rain wasn't just out of this world, but it was enough to produce some quail.
Was that mostly the timing? The timing of the rain, like you said, kind of when it happened, so it wasn't just just a scorching desert.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we came out of 2011 and 13 were horrible drought years. So then, what happened in 2016 really surprised us all, because we didn't think. I mean, normally it takes a couple of years to build that momentum, but just all of a sudden we had quail everywhere, and it's. Like I tell people, we just need average rain. We don't need, you know, this year's been above average. That's great. But what you don't need is droughts or long stretches without rain. But, you know, in 2015, 16, 17, we had 2 or 3 years in a row with just average rainfall. And that kind of puts things back in line. And then, to be honest, 2018 and 19 they were dry, but it wasn't just the worst drought we ever had. It just, I'm not a biologist, but they boom and they bust. And usually when you get to the top of a boom, you can expect them to drop back down. Nature just has a way of working things out.
Yeah, finding that.
But it was shocking in 2016 how. Yeah. But, before in 2013, you wouldn't hear a quail call or see a quail anywhere. So it was almost like, where'd they go? And a lot of people thought they were just gone forever. Even in the Dust Bowl, you can find newspaper articles of coming out of the Dust Bowl when they thought they'd never see another quail. And then it started raining, the quail just came back. It's almost like they just pop out of the ground. So obviously, that's not
dig down and hibernate until it's muddy again.
They're like cicadas.
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing that that they get hit. I guess they just are ground creatures more than even like a dove, I guess. And therefore,
dove migrate.
Dove do migrate. Yeah.
They go where they need to go.
Yeah.
Quail just kind of cross their fingers and sit it out. I hope. I hope I'm not speaking too
I would
too
think
off.
that would be true.
Yeah.
I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night, so I think
but even dove, they'll nest.
Yeah, they'll just kind of stay there.
Dove will nest up in the trees or up in the corners of your house. But quail are all ground nesting, which makes it hard. And you guys know about feral hogs, I'm sure. Anything that comes in between the ground and a feral hog is going to get
devoured.
All up.
Yeah.
T-posts and galvanized fence panel included. We actually trap. We have a trap we run and a cell gate, and we dropped the trap the other night. And I went out yesterday evening to dispatch the pigs, and they'd pulled 2 T-posts out of the ground and broke some galvanized wire. And yeah, pigs, man, it's the best.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's always amazing when they destroy something to that effect.
Oh, yeah, everything.
It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so
it's unreal the damage they can do.
Yeah, they're creatures of untold.
They're top of the food chain.
They are top of the food chain.
Yeah,
Well,
other than us, and if they're small, maybe a coyote or something,
like a land shark.
Like a land shark.
So I've always heard just through
Are you gonna ask? Go ahead.
About the fence lines?
Nope. Sorry.
Okay, so I always heard that one of the biggest reasons that quail lost a lot of habitat was because people started basically killing off grass underneath fence lines. And that was prime habitat because they could get there and kind of, it was a place to
the spotches of grass that hide and hang out and nest.
It gave them a place to get away from some of those things. Is that at all true, or is that just complete wives' tale? Like most things, like a lot of things in hunting, when it comes to the reason why something's
like fire ants. That's the one.
Fire ants is another good one. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Well, it can be, but if your habitat's good, there's a thing called the edge theory that quail kind of reside on edges of properties or edges of a farmland. But yeah, if your habitat's good across the whole property, they'll integrate into everything. But one of my pet peeves is the bar ditches on the county roads where they can't wait to get in there and mow all of that down. That's actually great habitat for quail if it's around a wheat field or whatever, because that's an area that they can kind of connect to other properties. My place, we're surrounded by wheat fields and there's no quail habitat, but which is good for me because they all come in there. But we're not ever going to pull quail off of neighboring properties because it's just not good habitat. But they're kind of create a corridor when you have where they don't mow off the sides of the roads, where quail can go from one property to the other. But yeah, the fence lines, the theory there would be just that the vegetation's taller because you can't mow along a fence line. But if your habitat's good, that's probably not as valid.
Yeah.
When you can look for acres and acres and see clumps of grasses and taller grasses and mesquite. I get a lot of questions, people that think they've got great property that why don't we have any quail? Well, you don't have a single. We think of mesquite trees as bad, but it's good cover for a quail, escape cover. So when you look across that looks like Montana, with no trees, it's not always the best for quail because they don't have anywhere to escape to. So go back to Dr. Rollins, Dr. Dale. He says you want a brushy cover about as far as you can throw a softball, so the quail can fly from escape cover to escape cover. So a lot of people get a ranch and they think we're going to get rid of all these mesquites, all these trees, and just make it prairie. That's not always the best thing for quail.
Yes, sir.
So we have Keys, this little piece of property east of here. It's the center of it is basically hayfield that isn't being used as hayfield. It's pretty tall. There's woods around it, and the owners talked about putting some quail in there because he has a friend who raises them. It's mind you, when I say this is my very, very baseline understanding. Don't they like chunks of grass, like you said, or because this is thick all the way through?
Yeah.
Is that a good idea for him to do that or no? Well,
it's never a bad idea. I mean, anytime you can, but it's going to be pen raised quail. Is that right?
From my understanding, yes.
It's an uphill battle with. I mean, you can put them out there and you can hunt them, and there's just not a lot of success in establishing like a bird. But it happens. I mean, there are people that put out quail, and then the next year they see some of the quail that have survived. But pen raised quail usually have a pretty short lifespan and don't reproduce. But kind of depends on when you say hayfield. I think like coastal Bermuda.
Yeah,
that's really not good for quail usually because it's just a monoculture.
It's been unkempt for multiple years, so it's not pure Bermuda. There's other stuff. There's definitely some mesquites in it, and there's woods surround. It's a 90-acre square. The hayfield in the center is a circle, basically.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, quail like that diversity. So coastal Bermuda was really popular in the 80s and 90s, and you've driven by properties where they mow it and it looks like a golf course.
Yeah.
Horse farms or whatever. That's not good for quail, but
sure.
Or they spray the weeds and kill the weeds.
Yep.
Yeah, I used to be in the golf business and we kill weeds all the time. But now I learned that quail, that's what they eat is what I consider a weed. So when you look into a pasture and it's just coastal Bermuda as far as you can see, that's not good for quail. But if you've got some
kind of like deer.
Wildflowers and weeds and things in there, that's what a quail's going to eat. Quail can't eat grass; they eat seeds.
Mm-hmm.
So,
sure.
Sunflowers and basically what I would call the weed is food for quail.
Yeah,
sure. Well, like deer, like I was just kind of mumbling. People think big grassy fields are good for deer. Like, nah, man, they're in there eating weeds, basically.
Yeah, you're right. The bunch grasses or clump grasses, like you said, that's what a quail uses for nesting. Mm-hmm. Little blue stem is probably one of the most prevalent. Another problem with landowners, they overgraze with their cattle, especially in a drought. And you can see across there again, it looks like a golf course. But quail need a certain amount of bunch grasses per acre. They build nests in those bunch grasses. They can't build nests in a prairie or just a Bermuda field. Prickly pear cactus is another good nesting habitat. They need those clump grasses so they can burrow in there and build a nest.
How far east do quail go? And let's just say Texas to tone it down some.
Yeah, it's back to what I was talking about earlier about Montague County. I still hear reports.
Tell me where Montague's at. I'm sorry, I can't place it.
Nocona and Bowie.
Okay.
And,
yeah.
I've heard some guys this year say they heard some quail in Nocona. I'm in Clay County, which is one county to the west, and we've got good numbers, and it's not great. But the farther west you go, you're going to see more quail. Childress, it's kind of a center point for a lot of quail hunters, a lot of quail leases out in Childress. But Clay County is about 3 counties east of Childress. But yeah, about Montague County, Cook County is east of Montague, and I don't think you might hear a quail there, but it's going to be rare. But I've been dove hunting in Crum, which is Wise County, I think.
Yep.
A few years, it's probably 7 or 8 years ago, and flushed a covey of quail. So you can find them. But there are quail probably in East Texas, like the Piney Woods, and we're funding some projects to try to get quail restored in East Texas, but they're going to be few and far between. You might hunt out there for a whole season and never see a bird. But as far as a huntable population, you pretty much Clay County. Below that, I can't think off the top of my head, but anything west of Weatherford is where you start getting into quail.
Gotcha.
I don't know that there are any in Tarrant County, but you start getting out west of Parker County, you might find some quail. But once you hit about Albany, you start to get into quail country. But it's pretty much I-35. You go down I-35, you're not going to find many quail east of I-35.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Amarillo, so I'm familiar with West Texas.
Yeah.
And my grandfather quail hunted, mostly pheasant hunted up in Oklahoma, from my understanding. There was always talks of quail.
Yeah.
I remember
Quail
my
are
dad
delicious.
talking about
Like
hunting quail in East Texas back in the 80s and
yeah.
the 70s. For sure. We had a 1,000-acre cattle ranch out in Wills Point, and they talked about hunting quail all the time out there. But that was 70s, 80s, like early 80s when that was going on. So
I come across people all the time that used to hunt quail, Northwest Highway in Dallas.
Wow.
That was in the 70s and 80s and before development. And obviously up in McKinney and Frisco, and obviously nothing there now.
Nope. Concrete.
Interesting.
We
We have a deer lease out in East Texas, Piney Woods. Be interesting to find some and dump them there.
Let's see what happens. I mean, how much does a quail cost?
I don't know. Jordan, how much does a quail cost?
I've never done
$5.
pin raise.
$5 a bird?
Yeah, $5, $6 a bird, yeah.
Austin Mago's got quail.
See? We were going to buy Jordan just a bunch of quail for his birthday.
We couldn't decide what to get him. We were just going to leave him a box of quail on his
leave him
porch.
quail on his
Like, hey, we heard you like these. We don't know what to do with them.
Like I said before, I jumped in both feet last year, and I think last year these boys had to listen to me talk about quail. I got
Last year, that's cute.
Oh,
Like it ended.
oh yeah. Well, it didn't end. Right.
That was the starting point.
The starting point. There you go. And I've been just
ate up
with wanting to quail
No, I get
hunt.
it.
Quail's one of my favorite birds to eat.
Yeah, agreed.
Hunting birds in general is one of my favorite things. Like waterfowl, dove hunting, even like bird hunting is.
It's great. It's wonderful.
One of my favorite things.
Wonderful.
And quail.
I'm not being sarcastic.
Yeah.
I'm agreeing.
I know. I'm just saying, like you are so hard up for a deer right now.
Don't rabbit trail this, but you're absolutely correct.
I can't take you seriously when you talk about birds.
But like it's one of those things where I since y'all guys severed that, I don't know where I was going with it. But.
Oh, my bad.
I love birds. You
I
open
know
this.
you
You
do.
open this window. You open these blinds behind him. There's a mud motor right there, son.
I understand that. I understand that.
We're very hard up in waterfowl.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I love ducks.
we are.
Abe's same boat I am.
Yeah,
Abe used to be a deer hunter,
Just-
and we turned him to waterfowl, and I'm the one that dropped out to upland.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. Well, there's lots of, pen-raised quail hunts have become pretty popular. There's
Yeah.
lots of outfitters around here that do it, but there's, if you ever get a chance to go on a wild quail hunt, there's nothing like it. I mean, with good bird dogs and a walk-in covey rise of 15 to 20 birds, it'll make your heart stop.
Yeah.
It's one thing we don't
That's
have.
cool.
It's one thing we don't have a good upland dog. I have a dog.
You're working on it, man.
Hey.
Matt, I have a black lab, and he wasn't. His first season or two, he had to blow the rust off and get his legs under him, and he's
Figure it out.
a machine now.
It's
Part of it.
I have a GSP that I think really likes the AC.
Who doesn't?
Yeah,
Who
doesn't.
So, as far as your kind of 5-year prediction for quail, you think the arrow's pointing up right now? You think we're kind of like stabilized, or you think we're kind of moving downward again? And then
I do. I think we're hopefully at the bottom and starting to head back up. The weather this year will help. I'm on a lot of quail hunting forums and obviously talk to a lot of people across the state. And a lot of people are frustrated because they're not hearing many birds calling this year. That's kind of how they measure the bird populations is you go out to a property and you listen for the quail whistle. There was just a forum yesterday that people were complaining that the calling numbers went down again this year, but that's really a function of how many birds we brought into the season. Last year was a low point, and then we had the ice storm, and so you're not going to hear a lot of birds calling, but it should be a great year for production. There should be a lot of quail chicks hatched this year with what's left from the stock. So then hopefully you go into next year with a bigger population, and then you start to tick back up. But that being said, I mean, we're good for this year. I mean, even if it stopped raining right now, we should have already had a good hatch, maybe even working on the second one. Hopefully you get one or two more rains, but we don't expect much rain in August. But,
I think we all didn't expect much rain in July this year too. So who knows? This year's been weird, right?
Yeah. But the big mystery is there's been lots of years where people heard lots of birds calling or saw lots of birds. And then October, you go dove hunting or whatever, you don't hear a quail, you don't see a quail. It's just like, where'd they go?
Yeah.
That's always a wild card. I hope that doesn't happen this year, but we've seen it lots of years where we thought we were going to have a decent quail season and the birds just disappeared. It doesn't mean they died. Again, I'm not a biologist. I don't know what happens, but you shouldn't hear a lot of birds calling in July and August and they just disappear. And that's one of the things we'll probably talk about later on is the eyeworm. It's a pretty good theory. I don't know that it's
dive in now, man.
Yeah, what is so you said eyeworm, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a parasite. It's actually their eyeworm and a cecal worm. A cecal worm gets in their intestines, which these parasites have been around for years. I mean, in the 40s and 50s they were documented, but the eyeworm actually, the quail will eat a grasshopper, cricket, arthropod, and the eggs are ingested, and then they hatch behind the eye, and it's a gross. There's pictures out there, but they pulled out a quail and looked in its eye, and there'd be 60 or 70 little microscopic eyeworms.
Oh man!
The human analogy, per scale, would be like a toothpick in your eye. That's the size of an eyeworm.
Whoa!
So,
no good.
So imagine 60 toothpick-sized worms in your eye. I mean, there's been tons of anecdotes about quail just flying into a barn or flying into a truck. The theory there is that they just can't see. It may not kill them, but it's something that is a debilitating type thing. If you're trying to produce and mate and you've got freaking worms in your eye all the time, couldn't be very pleasant. So that's one theory, is that why this all started back in I think 2010, 11, when we just got so frustrated with having birds and it's always, if you have habitat and it rains, you'll have quail.
Yeah.
And then I think in 2006, 2010, we had average rainfall, should have been good conditions, and then there's no quail. So that kind of kicked off a research initiative to try to figure out what was, and they tested everything from West Nile to, deer feeders, the aflatoxins in the deer corn, all these things. And, what they found was that there were a really high incidence of eyeworms across the rolling plains, which is, all that West Texas, Albany, Abilene, all the way up to Aspermont, Sweetwater, San Angelo, all that whole region just covered in eyeworms. So, there's a lot of debate. Some people think it's bogus and a lot of people think it's the real deal. So that's kind of the theory, is that you see quail in July and August, and when it rains, all these grasshoppers and crickets explode and the quail eat them, and it starts the eyeworm cycle. And, there's no doubt they're there. It's just what impact is that having on quail populations? And if you follow that theory, you could explain why are there no quail in September and October when we saw all these quail in the summer, that there's a massive die-off, or, who knows what goes on. But
I mean, it just more accepts, like you said, the thing doesn't kill it, but it does because it can't
Cripples
see.
it, yeah.
So now it gets eaten by a coyote because it doesn't know it's there, or it flies into a building, or it flies into, it can't function, right? I mean, it's not dying; it just can't function correctly, and that's what kills it, right? It's like,
and they have enough things going against them without having a bag of worms in their eye.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what we came from that research is we've developed a medicated feed that basically a dewormer. I mean, you deworm your dogs, your horses, your cattle, your cats. So there's not a dewormer that's ever been approved for a game bird. There's been dewormers for chicken and poultry and swine, production animals. But so we've been stuck for 4 or 5 years trying to get this approved by the FDA, and we're told it's really close. It was real close before COVID, and then obviously
everything
focus was shifted. But we feel like it's pretty close. But this is a medicated feed that I mentioned earlier, the feeders that have the little quail collars. So you'd feed your birds twice a year, and they would come in and eat this food, and it would eliminate the eyeworm and the cecal worm, basically just a dewormer for your quail, which hopefully would at least cross that factor out.
For sure.
I mean, we're obviously all hunters, and so even a 2% increase we'll take it.
A
right?
step up, yeah.
We're 2%
if you could do it every
closer.
year and catch a tiny bit every year.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
Yeah, so not to go down a broken road, but this happened in Scotland with the red grouse, and they had booms and busts, and it'd be habitat driven and weather driven, and just like quail hunting in West Texas, in Scotland, the red grouse is a huge economic windfall for the communities, and so they hired this scientist to figure out what the heck was going on. Why are we had great conditions and we have no red grouse, and he pinpointed this cecal worm that basically would create an odor that birds are good at masking themselves. Bobwhite quail can lay on a nest and not give off any scent when they're doing that. So these red grouse, when they were nesting, would emit an odor, and the predators would come and eat them. So he created this basically the same parallel, just a deworming medicated feed for these red grouse, and now they don't have. It's more steady. They have booms and busts, but the lowers are higher and the hires are higher. So he's basically a local hero because he's brought back the red grouse, and hunting is back to normal. So that's what we're trying to do with quail.
Awesome.
So, hell of a plan.
Agreed.
So we've already kind of talked about a lot of the stuff, and you're talking about research and everything. Let's kind of get with where the money goes that y'all guys raise for this research, because I know you talked about the Rolling Plains a lot, and the Rolling Plains research, that's the one I'm the most familiar with. Can you talk a little bit on that one?
Yeah, we can talk about all of them. So again, the Park Cities Quail chapter last year raised $2 million. This year was about 1.6. So they'll distribute their money to about 6 or 7 different grantees. We typically fund the annual operating budget for the Rolling Plains Quail Research Ranch. So they have interns and UTVs. They have headquarters facilities. They have a lot of operations going on. We pretty much pay that bill, and it's the only place in the country that is a 4,700 acre research ranch dedicated to quail only. They don't study turkeys or deer or anything like that. The Caesar Clayburgh down in South Texas is a more comprehensive wildlife program. Our South Texas chapter down there donates north of $100,000 to them each year. We have the Quail Tech program, which is based out of Texas Tech, but it's an alliance of ranches in West Texas where they do bird studies and supplemental feeding. We funded some supplemental feeding studies, which had some great results. With the event like we had this year with the ice and snowstorm, the folks that supplemental fed had more birds survive. So we've proven that supplemental feeding works. It's expensive, but it works. Then in the Texas Tech, there's a wildlife toxicology lab. Those are the guys that are doing the eyeworm research. We've granted them roughly $200,000 a year to keep that program going and get this medicated feed approved. There's the Borderlands Research Institute in Alpine. They do a lot of work on desert quail and both Gambel's and Montezuma or Mearns quail. So those are kind of the main programs we've funded across the state. In each chapter, Park Cities Quail does a lot, but, the Fort Worth chapter, Cross Timbers in Fort Worth, they have funded a lot of the Rolling Plains work and the Quail Tech work. It's just the Midland chapter. They just got their first banquet a year ago and raised $200,000. So they've got some pet projects out in West Texas. So we raise a lot of money and keep the ball moving on the quail research.
That's always one of the cool things that when I found y'all, obviously, like I said, starting quail hunting and doing a lot of research, y'all guys popped up a lot, and it was very interesting seeing how y'all just raise money. Like, you're used to like Ducks Unlimited and you get a lot of stuff and, there's all this stuff going on like DU biologist, which is fantastic. But, I really wanted to talk to y'all because it was such a interesting concept of y'all raise money and then fund, biologists and schools and all this stuff to do all the research and stuff. It's a neat concept.
Yeah, and we're proud of it, and I think it does help us raise more money because, when you're sitting down at a dinner and you bought your ticket and you're buying a raffle item or a silent auction item or a live auction item and you're wondering where that money goes, and we're not, again, not to diminish what other organizations do, but,
right.
You know how government works with Parks and Wildlife, and it's just bureaucracy and tons of employees, and with employees come benefits and trucks and offices, and we just don't. We'd rather give that money to the research organization. So, I can't say 100% of every dollar, but that come close. 100% of every dollar goes to quail research or quail habitat or kids programs. We do a lot of things with the kids to keep kids. I mean, if we don't have kids that want to go hunt and fish, we're it's not going to be good in the future. So
that's actually a really good segue. Real fast. I didn't mean to cut. I think you were going to say something else, but what exactly do you do with the kids? I know you have the Bob White Brigade, right?
That's right. Yep.
Can you talk about
Bob White Brigade is a youth camp where it's really a leadership camp, but it works in quail biology and learn about quail and habitat, and that has actually created an offshoot. Now they have a bass brigades, a buckskin brigade that's focused on deer, a ranch brigade that's focused on ranch management. But it all started with the Bob White Brigade, where they do all kinds of things. They do quail taxidermy. They learn what quail eat. They go out and do some habitat field studies and learn about quail, politics and the economics of quail. But it also teaches them how to speak, public speaking and interact with other kids. That's one of the programs we fund. We also fund a lot of youth shooting scholarships, and there's another program called Outdoors Tomorrow Foundation that introduces kids in schools to hunting education and hunting and fishing outdoors, which is a great program. That the biggest one here is in Allen, where they actually have an archery team that is nationally ranked.
Wow.
But instead of going to a PE class where you play dodgeball, they go to a class where they learn about hunter education and get their hunter safety course out of the way. And
that's awesome.
Kids that may never ever be on a ranch or ever get to go hunting and fishing, but they're introduced to it. So obviously,
I would have much rather had that than PE.
Yeah, right.
No doubt.
Right, and that's one of the things. Like
exactly
when I heard about the Bob White Brigade, it was so amazing.
You need to get your offspring signed up.
Yeah, I do. But it was so amazing that it wasn't just like y'all were focusing on quail. Like you were saying, you're talking about you teach them how to do public speaking. You teach them, how to be a leader, basically. Not just You put those seeds in for the quail part of it, but it's more focused on like progressing that child into public speaking and doing other things besides just like, oh, we learned about quail. That's
growing
cool.
them as a human.
Yeah, exactly. Like, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone down there and helped them, kind of participated, and you see kids that walk in there that barely say a word, and then by the end of the week, they're, talking all over the place.
Yeah,
thriving.
Yeah, jeez.
You said something about them learning about quail taxidermy. Do you know anything about bird taxidermy?
Oh, very little. I mean, just from watching those kids more than anything. I could never do it. I mean,
sure. That's.
I've seen it done, but yeah, I don't know a whole lot.
I understand
the concept.
Ungulate taxidermy. You wrap the skin around a foam mold, right? I think I could figure that out. Right? It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Bird taxidermy, and I mean, right behind this computer you're on, all my ducks are on the wall. Yeah, does not make sense to me. It's some sort of magic. I don't get it. Paying for them and then getting them back is just like, this is Christmas, but I can't explain it. Yeah. Like it's amazing to me. It's such an art.
Going into our bird guy's house, you look around, he just has like every single inch of his walls is covered in taxidermy of birds, and you're just like, this is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a few pheasant mounts and a couple of quail, and I don't know how they keep all those feathers together. And
I don't I mean, I cut up plenty of birds in my day. I don't understand skinning one out well, and like you said, keeping the feathers intact and be able to put it. I understand there's a little football of foam in that thing. I get that.
Yeah.
But the neck,
how to get
it all fixed up and stitched. I mean, they split that thing open.
You clean birds with your thumbs.
I agree with you.
That's the thing I don't understand.
Like doing a dove where you just press it, and you just pop your thumb in there.
Yeah, but getting that skin off nicely and then stitching it back up, and like I have a bufflehead mount, and it took a bunch of pellets to the head, and he's like, man, I had to do so much stitching on the head, and he's got a little poof. He's almost got a laugh row to him because of that, but you can't see a stitch. There's black magic involved. Changed my mind.
It's some sort of voodoo.
I don't get it.
It's some sort of voodoo.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know where to start.
No way. But rabbit trail. Ugh. You mentioned that, and you said they were doing it. I thought, man, let's see.
They do it. These kids,
that's amazing.
They out of there with a mounted quail. I mean, to be honest, they don't always look all that good. But
sure, but it'd be cool.
I would give $100 for a kid's quail just to be like, oh, what is this? Oh, this is a fundraiser. A kid did that. It'd be kind of cool to have in your house.
That's actually an idea.
Just glue some googly eyes on it. And
oh my god, that'd be so
and own it. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Exactly. So, I guess this is kind of. I'm guessing this question hasn't been asked. If it has, I apologize. But all the people who listen to this podcast know I'm a mess anyway. So, so we don't have, and where we started off as hunters, Jordan grew up in a hunting family, right? He grew up hunting as a kid, and that was part of his culture as a child coming up. Austin and I grew up in a place where guns were fine, hunting was fine. It just
wasn't done.
It wasn't done. My dad didn't hunt. His dad didn't hunt.
Nope.
I had an uncle who hunted, but we lived far apart, so it was just difficult to get together.
Yeah, my grandfather did, but he was done hunting by the time I was cognizant.
So we refer to ourselves as adult onset hunters, and that led to a high propensity to hunt public land in the state of Texas, just from a lack of family property, places to go, where to go and do it. So
I see where you're going with this. Oof.
In the state of Texas, if I wanted to go, and distance doesn't matter, because let's not even put that caveat on it. We live in Texas, nowhere's too far.
We all be driving.
Right? If I was going to hunt public land quail in the state of Texas, what direction would you tell me to go?
You don't have to burn spots, obviously.
Just west, east, north, south. That's all I'm looking for.
There's really two in Texas that are good for quail. The Matador, which is out near Childress. Mm-hmm. The Matador WMA, it's just a...
Fingers crossed I draw a gun mule deer hunt out there.
Management area that's run by Parks and Wildlife. I've never done it. I don't know the process, if you have to get in line or register or what.
I know it's not open to the public.
It's not.
I know you can't just go out there and hunt Like it's by draw only for deer and mule deer. But I don't know for birds it may be different. But I know that's I know where that's at.
That's interesting. So Matador, all right.
Then the other one, I don't know where it is. It's Chaparral. It's in South Texas.
Yep.
I don't know what city it's next to. I don't get to South Texas a whole lot, but
I know
that's
exactly
another
where
one
that's
that's a WMA that I've heard of some guys going down there.
Okay. Fascinating.
I went way south this year.
I was going to say
you went to New Mexico.
Well, that's
I went to
west,
Mexico too. Yes, I did.
Whatever. Don't. Settle down, scientist.
I went over the border to New Mexico, but I went all the way to the border of Mexico in South Texas, and the public
like
land.
Brownsville.
Yeah. All those dots you saw way down low in McAllen and all that. That's where I tried to hunt.
That
quail.
wasn't me scouting ducks down there.
I was very unsuccessful down there, but I will tell you one thing. The public land down there was the most disgraceful piece of land I've ever seen in Texas. Tires, trash, washing machines.
It's not a dumping ground.
It was a dumping ground.
Yeah. It's not a city
It looked
dump.
like I felt like I was hunting a dump. There was spots that were pretty nice, but it was terrible.
And based on what I've learned thus far, I don't think washing machines are good quail habitat.
No.
Okay.
I'm new to the whole quail game too, but I'm going to go on a guess, Jay.
Yeah.
You can back us up, but a washing machine does not make solid quail habitat.
Maybe a tire.
I can see a tire.
Yeah,
You convinced me to get behind a tire.
A stack of tires? No, because
probably
they
not.
can't get
Probably
up into the stack, and then
they're tiny.
They're tiny little birds.
But
they don't jump high.
Mm-mm.
Unfortunately, Texas is. Texas is not really known for public lands, and maybe we can change that. But you go up to Kansas, Oklahoma, there's some pretty good public hunting opportunities.
Yep.
And I'm going to guess in Oklahoma that's all west of 35.
Oh yeah.
I want to go to Fort Smith real bad.
Pretty much, yeah.
Fort Cobb, sorry, Fort Cobb.
Yeah, that's Arkansas.
I want to go there too, but those are for big green quail, big greenhead quail.
Big greenhead quail.
They make a different noise.
What noise do they make?
Quack.
Oh, okay. That was better than your Bob White noise.
That was
Bob
better
White.
than
Bob White.
Bob White. Bob White. I don't know, Jay. Do you think I have what it takes to be a world champion caller?
Absolutely not.
So do you guys have
some work?
Yeah, just a touch.
Don't give him hope,
Just a touch.
please.
I already have a deficiency with duck calls.
No, you've gotten much better.
You got much better.
Yeah. But I'm already looking.
No, it's been a long time since someone yelled at you and then threatened to meet you at the boat ramp.
Yeah. I feel fairly safe with you two around me.
But anywho,
so do you guys? I seem to remember. It may have been. I seem to remember Park City Quail having an event at Tailwaters one time. And you're wearing an Orvis fishing shirt, and you mentioned fly fishing already. So I'm guessing
birds of a feather.
Yeah, you got the kind of fly fishing and quail hunting.
My participation's done now.
Are you a fly fisherman, Jay?
There's a lot of crossover. I am, yeah. I love to. But, don't get to that much, but yeah, we go to New Mexico every year and do a little bit there, and been to Montana once or twice, Colorado. So.
Nice.
Most quail hunters are fly fishermen.
Yeah. Jordan and I.
But yeah, we did have I think it was the state of.
Yeah, I remember. I think
we had a state of the quail meeting at Tailwaters.
I think I was there for that. Not related to quail. I was just hanging out with Sean one day and just was like, "What's going on here?" He's like, "I think it's Park City's quail." And I was like, "Well, how much money can I spend in here on crap that I don't need?"
John's a good dude.
Jordan and I have taken the fly fishing bug pretty hard over the last couple of years, and then this year I've
done a lot of dumb moves the last couple of years.
I mean,
it's fly fishing and more bird hunting because I didn't have duck hunting. Didn't take enough of my money.
Yeah.
Try harder.
Exactly.
Son.
And I have 30,
no, I get
it. Just try harder.
Yeah. We've burned traditional tackle to the ground this year, and for Jordan and I, we have gone all fly fishing all year long.
Wait,
since
ask us how many fish we caught. Ask us how many fish we caught this year.
I've caught a bunch on at the.
Yeah, how many fish?
I've caught 0.
I've caught 10. 10 bass.
Okay. But that was at the farm, right?
That was at the farm.
Yeah.
A stock 2-acre pond.
So something that you
nobody
could throw
fishes.
So you could put basically an empty hook, maybe a piece of corn.
I'd put bubble gum on it and swear to God I'd catch me a bass.
No doubt.
So that doesn't count.
On a place where it may be a touch more difficult, nothing.
But I haven't gotten to my creek yet to catch some bluegills.
Yes.
But bluegills are pretty easy.
Anywho.
Yeah. Well, what have we not talked about? Are there any big events coming up for you guys? Do you guys have any fundraisers or pint nights or get-togethers? Do you guys do that kind of thing?
Yeah, we'll have a couple of Quail Coalition banquets. They're August and October. I think August 28th is our one in Kingsville or Robstown. They kind of move it back and forth, but that's the South Texas chapter. Fort Worth will have their banquet. I think it's October 21st, I believe, 21st or 28th. We kind of August and October are our banquet season. Park City's Quail. We're going to have a snake proofing clinic August 14th.
Nice. That's I'll actually be there.
Avoid rattlesnakes.
Are you going to be there?
Okay, good.
I actually probably should have done that. We had a work weekend at one of the deer leases, and I jumped on that
work weekend. It's me going to build a deck, and I asked you to come.
Yeah, but same thing. So, but I'll be out there at that one.
Yeah, we do that every year, and a lot of people come back every year just to get the refresher. So that'll be August 14th, and then October 26th, we're going to have a sporting clay shoot at Dallas Gun Club for Park City's Quail. And there's just, what I'd say is go to our Facebook, especially for Park City's Quail. They're really up on their social media, Facebook and Instagram and website. We've got a Quail Coalition website that needs to be updated a little bit, but that's kind of where you can find out about the events that are coming up.
Okay,
that's probably one of the biggest ones on most of the hunting organizations we go on is just keeping up to date with on the social media. We're terrible at that. Is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that I just remembered I wanted to talk to you about was cooking and eating quail.
Oh yeah.
What's your favorite way? You got a handful of quail breasts.
You know what step one is?
What's that?
Shoot a quail.
Well,
but anywho,
I'm not. Jay here's a professional.
True, he has birds.
Right. Yeah. He knows how to kill birds.
No one here does.
I just wander around with a shotgun, going,
"Hey, quail!
Is there any beer around? Can I shoot this dove?" So you got a handful of quail. How are you cooking them? You can cook them any way you want. What's the one way you're doing it? Your favorite way to do it?
Yeah. To me, there's nothing better than fried quail. That's what I grew up eating, and I could still remember that taste to this day. When I was a kid, my dad or granddad would go out and shoot a bunch of quail, and I'd get to eat them. But I just do the breast. I know a lot of people maybe fry the whole quail, but there's not a lot of meat on the legs, and quail breast is just, to me, probably one of the best things in the world. But yeah, it's pretty simple. Just breast out the quail and dip it in flour, mix in a little cornmeal if you want, and deep fry it. And it's hard to beat.
Do quail breast out like doves? Since they're small birds, you can kind of just peel skin back and pop the breast out?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Now you're going to need 3 or 4 of them because you're going to eat one and then you're going to want another one.
Yeah.
Jordan, get your shit together.
Yeah, come on, bro.
Bro.
I'll bring you ducks.
I've got trophies as well.
You guys made fun of me for not duck hunting.
No, we're not. No, we never did.
Yeah, you did.
Because we like duck hunting. We don't really think about quail hunting. And the sincerest form of flattery is mockery. That's how that goes, right?
Exactly.
And
B, sure. Let's go with that one.
And B, people mock things they're scared of.
Yeah, exactly. I'm terrified of them. They've got that little thing on their head.
Yeah.
What if it comes right
What is that,
them?
an antenna?
Yeah, is it an antenna?
Are they aliens?
Dude, the scale quail hunt I went on in New Mexico was awesome. That was a whole thing.
Yeah, of course it was. Stormwater Creek.
In my dad's backyard in Arizona, I just sat and watched quail all day, and I think there were merns. Right?
Probably gambles.
Gamble. Yeah, gambrels. Gamble. How do you say it?
Gambles.
Gambles.
A gambrel is the thing you hang a dead animal on.
I know what that is. I don't get to do that very often.
Yeah, I mean, it's I've done played golf in Arizona, and there's just quail running down the fairway like anything, you know.
And you're like, where?
Kind of frustrating. We wish we had them like that here.
Yeah, exactly.
Put a Red Rider in my club bag.
Yeah, right now the biggest mockery I have is everywhere I look in town is dove. I've seen more dove, I think, this year than I've ever seen, especially in town. Like, I mean, they're just like everywhere.
It was the same way last year. Around this area.
I don't know, man.
It was, I promise.
Maybe around this area, but like even at my house, like I'm hearing dove like crazy. You got somewhere you can hunt them?
There'll be none.
Not there.
No, zero.
None.
No quail. No dove. None of each.
Well, Jay, we really appreciate
Thank you so much.
Park City Quail Coalition.
Yeah. What's all the shameless promotion you can do?
Where to find you? Self promotion right now. Go.
Yeah, follow us on our Facebook and Instagram, specifically Park City's Quail. They're probably our leading chapter in terms of social media. But a lot of our chapters have Facebook pages, you know, Cross Timbers Quail, Hill Country Quail, Quail Coalition, and come to some of our events. I mean, I get emails all the time. How do I get involved? Say, just come to an event and start meeting people. That's how I did it. I started as a volunteer and helped with a silent auction, just going out and getting items, and it turned into a full-time job. So, it's a great group of people. And, you know, depending on where you live, anywhere in Texas, you're going to have a Quail Coalition chapter somewhere close.
Stone's throw away.
Mm-hmm.
Where was that event at Fair Park we did? When we were,
EarthX.
We met some of y'all at EarthX once because I've got some Quail Coalition stickers in my garage still.
Park City's Quail. Park City's
Quail. Park City's. Yeah.
Stickers.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know when that was.
Probably
16, 17?
3 years ago.
Yeah.
We did it for a few years. I don't know that we're going to do it anymore.
It was an interesting place for the organization.
For hunters. we were part of Backcountry Hunters Anglers then and helping out. And,
yeah, that's right. I remember that.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's very interesting for the hunting
audience
part of the world.
Yeah.
Man, we got some.
I was tippy-toeing around that, but that's probably why we're not going to go back.
Understandable.
Yeah, I mean,
it ranges between people who are like, oh, man, I know what's up. Y'all are great. So y'all are outfitters, right? No, man. Then so you kill animals? I'm like, that's leather purse.
Yeah. We're out of here. We can't deal with this. Yeah, no. We were the same way. I mean, it's a cool event for sure. You know, from a standpoint of just for what it is. It's a sustainability.
And that's cool.
And recycling, kind of like how to do better with less. Awesome.
Totally awesome. We should all probably do better at that.
Don't know if
that's the place for hunting.
A hunting organization to be. We talk about putting, you know, gasoline-soaked rags next to a match and just like, these will be fine. We'll just put them 2 aisles apart from each other.
They're fine.
Yeah, from you know,
PETA
and,
to Safari Club.
Yeah, it was interesting. So I don't know. We like events at Tailwaters. That seems.
Sean and the crew are awesome.
Yeah, Sean always puts it up very well with everybody. So.
Yeah.
Well, man, we appreciate you being on the podcast. If you are not subscribed to the podcast, if you are joining because you saw Jay's name on the title of this and you're like, oh my God, I want to give these guys a listen. I'd like to know more about quail. You can subscribe to our podcast and hear
other things too.
More ridiculous stuff. We do all things outdoors. So anything that is in the outdoors, we probably do. So, thank you for listening. Jay, thank you for joining us.
Thank you again, sir.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
High five.
Good job, Jordan.
Hugh Braley.
Yep. Stormwater Creek is the best. Grinch, the captain. Aim, the helper. Jordan, the problem solver. I hope you like Stormwater Creek. Stormwater Creek.